I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hornady Podcast. If you're returning, thanks for tuning back in. If you're new to the podcast, please consider subscribing, sharing with your friends, liking. We appreciate you listening in. Today, I'm joined across the table by Marketing Director Neil Davies. Neil, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Seth.
Absolutely. And I'm excited for today's guest, and you've got a lot more history than I do, and just a prolific competitor in a bunch of different shooting sports, and someone that we've been lucky enough to have partnered with Team Hornady. So please join me in welcoming Jessie Harrison to the podcast. Jessie, thanks for coming on.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We appreciate you sitting down with us, and we know you're busy, probably carving into your practice time with as much practice as it takes to be proficient in the shooting sports. Now, with most of these podcasts that I have a guest on like you, I'd like to go back a little bit and look at what you were doing early on. You know, where'd you grow up, and what shaped you into the gun nut like the rest of us?
So I grew up in McDonough, Georgia, which is about 30 miles south of Atlanta. And to be honest with you, I was not really a shooter as I would define myself now until I was about 15 years old. But
Okay.
I literally grew up on the range. My dad was a competitive shooter. He was a 5-time world champion cowboy action shooter. And when I was back when my brother and I were toddlers, he was actually shooting USPSA before it was known as USPSA. It was still IPSC here in the States. So he was shooting that. My mom would go to the range with him. She would shoot. She wasn't really big into the competition, but they would take us through a playpen on the range. We'd hang out in that. They'd shoot, hang out. So I literally grew up on the range as a child. There's a picture somewhere of my dad winning the 1985 Georgia State IPSC championship. That's the year I was born, and he walked up to get his trophy, and he's holding me. So I need to find that. I've referenced that a couple of times when I'm asked about how I grew up shooting. I need to find that photo. But no, I grew up in a shooting family. Spent days and days and days on the range with my dad, my mom, my brother. It was just our way of life as a family, and I loved to shoot, but I had really no drive to compete. So I just liked having the time at the range with the family, plinking around. And my dad would always ask, hey, do you want to shoot this match? Do you want to do this? And I just didn't have the interest yet. And he never pushed it. And I think that was vital to me having such a long career now and staying interested and not burning out, because I wasn't forced as a young child to participate in this. But for some reason, at the age of 15, he had started shooting cowboy action shooting at this time. And they ran the local club, and we had our state championship coming up. And he asked, hey, do you want to shoot the match this weekend? You know, you've been out here shooting the guns, practicing. Why don't you come shoot with me? And for whatever reason, I said yes, and showed up, shot the match. It was my first match ever, and I won it. And but that sounds great and all, but I was the only one there.
Okay, fair
I was the only one in my, division.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's honestly, I feel like that's what gave me the drive to say, oh, I can do this, because it wasn't a massive fail, out of the gate. I know my performance was by no means anything successful, but it at least gave me a confidence boost to say, hey, I enjoyed this. I have the resources to learn how to do this. My dad's a world champion. I have the greatest coach I could ever ask for. And something just sparked in me after that match. And that's when my competitive drive really came out. And I decided this is what I want to do. I have no idea how I'm going to do this long term. I don't even know if you can make a career out of this. I was only 15 years old, but I fell in love with it at that moment.
That is pretty
So,
awesome.
and that was, and what was you were a cowboy action shooter, right?
Yeah.
So what was your handle? What was your name?
Jasmine Jessie.
Jasmine Jessie.
Yeah, there we go.
Jasmine Jessie.
That's
Yep.
cool.
One of the local cowboys actually came up with a name for me. I could not think of anything. I was like, I don't want anything like scary or like a punk name. And he goes, well, what about Jasmine Jessie? I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's go with it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I guess I forget about that. Cowboy action shooting around here was really popular, probably in that same time frame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gotten smaller in popularity, I think regionally since then. But yeah, there was
there's just been so many other genres or outlets for shooting that have come on strong since then.
I've worked with a gentleman that
Doug
shot,
Durner?
Doug, and so we always call it his cowboy action handle.
What was his? Do you remember?
I think it was Gunsmoke.
Yeah, Gunsmoke.
That's a good
right.
one.
Yeah, and he was early in the game, so he had like a low shooting number. Yeah.
My dad has a 0, like starts with a 0, I think, a low number. Or
does your
maybe
dad
a
still
1.
shoot competitively? No, he's a pilot, right? Wasn't he a pilot?
No, he worked for Delta. He was a machinist.
Okay.
He worked for Delta for 42 years, but he's retired, living his best life now, but he doesn't do any of the pistol shooting anymore. He's kind of retired into the shotgun shooting. So he goes and shoots sporting clays a couple times a week.
Gentleman's sport.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. So how did things progress from there then? So kind of started off as a teenager, and then did you just keep competing all the way through?
I did. So in Georgia, we have, even still in so many different disciplines, Georgia is just a pocket for world champion shooters. I don't know what it is. I don't know what we're growing or eating here, but we have so many champion shooters, and I had the benefit of practicing with other world champion shooters as I was learning. I had my dad. There was a couple husband and wife that competed with us, a couple more kids my age that were junior champions. So I just was able to learn at a faster rate of speed and learn from some of the best. So I just started setting goals in cowboy action shooting because that's all I knew at the time, and just tried to beat the next goal, or if I set my sights on someone, just try and be at their level or try and imitate how they moved or shot or transitions from guns. So I just kept working at it, and probably 5 or 6 years into cowboy shooting, I was shooting a world championship in California, but this was the weekend before they had the Steel Challenge. And it was all set up in the same valley out in Piru. And I just remember seeing, we went out to the range one day just to watch it. And I remember seeing, I was like, oh my gosh, like they don't have to cock their gun every time. And they have more than 6 rounds, and they have logos all over their shirts. That means they're getting paid to do this. So that was a huge eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, I was like, people do this for a living. It's not just a hobby. So I slowly made the transition to the more modern disciplines, starting with Steel Challenge. And I remember I shot Steel Challenge with my single action revolvers for the first time. That was my first introduction to Steel Challenge or a modern discipline. And I did that for 2 years. The second year, I want to say I shot a 1911 as well. It was not pretty. I think I actually beat my time with my single action revolvers. And from there, I would shoot the local match at home, the steel match. And since Glock is in basically my backyard, a lot of the people from Glock would shoot the local matches.
Yeah.
And one of the ladies that ran the Glock matches, Cindy, she knew I was trying to find a foot into the industry. And she told me, she said, well, our female shooter is no longer with us, and this is an opportunity. They're looking for another female shooter. If you're interested, you should put together a resume of some sort and see if, they're interested. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm right on top of that. And I turned around, I was like, how do I put together a resume? Like, I don't even,
I like to shoot things. I'm pretty good.
Yeah. I'm a trigger puller.
Yeah.
So I put together something and submitted it, and they actually ended up bringing myself and another female cowboy shooter, Randy Rogers, on to Team Glock. And that was back in, I believe, 2005. And I shot for Glock for about 5 years. And it was the greatest stepping stone for my career because it gave me a platform to dive into all of these shooting sports and have, someone back me and support me with it. And just with that, I kind of went through the same process as I did in cowboy shooting. I just started setting goals, and I had to retrain everything because the guns are different. The shooting style is extremely different, rules, everything. So I had a little bit of a learning curve probably that first year, but I just tried to, again, find the people that I could learn from that were the best in the sport. And again, I had access to those people in the local area, and just started setting goals and trying to climb that ladder. And from there, I stayed with Glock for about 5 years, and it just got to a point to where I had a big decision to make, because it was a sponsored shooting position, but I wasn't earning money to be able to live off of. And I was at a point in life, I had a lot of changes going on, and I needed to start figuring out, okay, I need to make money, or I've got to figure something else out. And I had to make a really tough decision to leave a fully paid shooting position, or like walk away with nothing in hand and hope that from what I've done in these 5 years, I could get the attention of a couple of companies. And that was around 2010, 2011. And that's actually when I signed on with Hornady. Hornady and Leupold were my first two signed sponsors. And it all happened in the same year. So
yeah, it must have made an impact in those years you were shooting for Glock, obviously.
What did you shoot? What division were you in when you shot for them?
I shot production, limited, and limited 10 in USPSA. And then when I shot Steel Challenge, I would shoot open, limited, and sometimes production.
Did you shoot Bianca for them too? The Bianca Cup?
You know what? I think I did. Maybe the first year I took a Glock set up for a Bianca gun. I believe that was the first year I shot Bianca. I had an open Glock, which it looked like a Frankenstein gun. And I quickly found out that that was not the proper equipment to show up to that match with. But, I tried it. That was the company I was with. So that was a platform that I used. But once I left Glock, and again, it was a great stepping stone, and I still have great relationships with them. It was just one of those, I had to decide what was going to be best for my future. And from 2011, things just took off. I signed with Hornady and Leupold in the same year, and Taurus towards the end of 2011. And I've been with Taurus and Hornady since, and I've had a handful of other sponsors come on, and it's just taken off and has been like a career dream. I know that sounds really cliche, but I couldn't have ever imagined that this is what shooting that first Georgia State Cowboy match would have turned into.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that maybe have seen you in magazines or in ads and this and that don't shoot competitively, but I don't know that they quite understand how qualified you actually are. I mean, you're a multi-time Bianchi winner, the first lady grandmaster, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a pretty thick resume there that a lot of people maybe aren't quite aware of.
It's unfortunate that our sport or any of the shooting sports don't get more publicity. And honestly, for someone that doesn't know about our shooting sports to go and find any information is kind of hard. I wish there was one governing body that would kind of take over everything and make it more professional. But I mean, y'all understand it, as with mainstream media, guns and shooting sports aren't viewed in a positive eye, but we try and share our sport and bring eyes to it. But I've just been fortunate in this industry and with great companies that I've had the ability to partner with that have just made this, a dream come true.
Speaking of the mainstream media, didn't you had an appearance on one of the big news channels at one point, didn't you?
I did. I did. So this was back, I want to say it was maybe Obama's first term, and all of the Black Rifle scary guns were going on. And this was also when I was hosting the TV show for the NRA, the Friends of NRA TV show. And I got to SHOT Show, and the NRA literally came to me and said, "Hey, we need you to leave SHOT Show and fly to headquarters and NRA headquarters, and we're going to put you on Fox News with Sean Hannity." And I was like, "Oh, wow." First of all, SHOT Show is like the biggest thing for these companies and what I bring to the table. Like, I can't miss this. And second, like, this is the biggest platform I've ever had to stand on. And I was a little shell shocked at first, but, I thought about it and I said, you know what, my lifestyle is this industry. And if, when called upon to stand up for it and defend it and cast a positive light on it, if I don't do that, then I would feel like a hypocrite. So I had the NRA go around to all of my sponsors and basically give them the excuse of why I won't be here. And flew to NRA and prepped for going on national news and shooting guns. I actually shot guns for the episode, which was nerve-wracking.
Yeah, don't miss. Yeah, a little bit of pressure there.
Yeah, but it was cool. It was, I basically was trying to, because they were, during that time, it was, all these accessories that are put on rifles are what makes, the AR bad. And I was trying to prove the point that those are just cosmetics, that, all of these handguns or I even had I think a rifle and a shotgun are used for so many different sports, outdoors events, recreation, self-defense, like so many different things, that they're not scary guns, and the guns themselves don't go and, hurt people. So I had to basically debunk this stuff on national news. So I was a little nervous.
Yeah, that was a big deal. I remember when that happened. Yeah. Did you do anything? Have you done any other advocacy stuff for any other groups or anything like that? NSSF or any of those people?
No, I haven't done anything for NSSF. I did that original time slot with Sean Hannity, and then he had me back on for a follow-up episode. And then I also had the chance to go, actually flew to New York and was on the Judge Janine show.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Which she's super cool. I loved her. Very nice lady. Very matter of fact. I love it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Judge Janine. I can't say I've seen it.
You have to check it out. She's on Fox. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so I had those 3 opportunities with on a national platform. And other than that, it's just, mostly industry stuff with, I hosted the NRA TV show and cast light on all of the programs that the NRA has to offer, other than just, someone, fighting for gun rights, that all of the wonderful things that they do for conservation, for shooting sports, introducing people into the industry. And just through that, and then shooting, a couple of other shooting shows that highlight the shooting sports, but that's about it.
That's quite the career. Now, of the shooting sports, I'm not super well versed in action pistol shooting. So we were talking about Steel Challenge and USPSA and some of those other sports. What sports are you really focused in on right now over the last couple of years here, and what separates them? What's the difference with what makes Bianca different than USPSA versus Steel Challenge and stuff?
That's a great question, because a lot of people don't know the difference, and they're all very, very different. So the disciplines I compete in mostly now are USPSA or IPSC, and I'll explain the difference. Steel Challenge, and I haven't shot Bianca in a couple of years, just because it's a very specific sport, and by that I mean I have a gun for every discipline I compete in, a gun and a backup gun. And this one is very specific. It doesn't really translate to any other of my shooting sports. And when I shoot this match, there's 4 events that you compete in at Bianca Cup. And Bianca is more of an accuracy match, whereas everything else I do is speed and movement. So Bianca is, you have 4 events. You have the mover, the falling plates, the barricade, and the practical. And each one you shoot from 5 yards out to 50. The practical is 5 yards to 50. Everything else is 10 to 20, 10, 15, 20, 25. And the purpose of this match is you're trying to achieve a perfect score. And what that means is, I don't know if you've seen the tombstone shaped targets that have the black bullseye in the middle and then black shooting rings surrounding it.
Yep.
So a perfect shot is going to be in the black bullseye. That's your X ring. And I think a perfect score is going to be a 1920. So you shoot 192 shots for the entire event. And with the falling plate rack, you have a plate rack that you shoot twice at every yard line. And then the barricade, you shoot the left side and then you shoot the right side all the way back to 35 yards. The practical, you're going to shoot from 5 back to 50. And then on the mover, they run a target back and forth and you have to shoot it both directions from each yard line. Now, the center, that bullseye, I want to say is like a 3 or 4 inch circle. So that's what you're aiming for while it's moving, while you're backing all the way out to 50. It's very, very challenging. It's probably the hardest match I've ever shot. And you're striving for a perfect score or as close to perfect as you can get. There's no room for error. You're not allowed to take makeup shots. So it's really it's probably one of the most truest forms of shooting skill, period. There's no physical aspect to it at all. Now take that and compare it to USPSA or still challenge, and it's still a test of shooting skill, but now you're adding in running and movement, and it's very physical. Mm-hmm. So with still challenge, it's probably kind of in the middle of those three disciplines. You have 8 stages. Those stages never change. So if you go shoot a still challenge match anywhere in the country, you're going to see those same 8 stages, and they're going to be set up to spec. And with each stage, there's 5 pieces of steel. You're going to shoot each stage 5 strings, and you keep your 4 best runs. And they're going to take the 4 runs per stage and then add that into a total match time. So it's scored by your time only. If you have a miss, it adds 3 seconds to that string. So the name of the game is to be the fastest and most accurate. But with every stage, there's a different challenge with how it's set up. So one stage is called Smoke and Hope, and you have 4 18 by 24 gongs, and they're set up kind of going like a V away from you. So you have 2 18 by 24s here at 7 yards, 2 at 10, and then a 12-inch circle stop plate at 15. And that one's super fast. So the top guys are going to run this stage from the draw, 5 shots in under 2 seconds.
Wow. Burning it down.
Super fast. Then you might have a stage that's a complete opposite, and it's called Outer Limits. So you're going to have 2 18 by 24s at 35 yards and 3 12-inch circles at, I want to say it's 25 yards. And this one actually it's the one stage that has a little bit of movement. So you'll start in one box and you shoot a 12-inch circle, and then the 18 by 24, you move to your next box and you shoot a circle, the 18 by 24, and then your stop plate. In that one, the top shooters, 5 shots from the draw with movement out to 35 yards, they're going to be shooting that anywhere from 3 to 4 seconds. So it's still extremely fast. And then another stage, you might have to wear a 25-yard bay, and the targets are going to span, 3/4 of that width. So you have a lot of wide transitions. You might have another one, 5 to go. You have 10-inch plates, and they start at 7 yards and go out to 18. So it really challenges the shooter on multiple skill sets but then you add in speed, and that changes the game for everybody. So it's really just step to the line, and you've got to be the fastest, most accurate. And then with USPSA, and I mentioned USPSA versus IPSC. IPSC is the international governing body for this sport, and USPSA is the United States governing body. Okay. And what this does is it incorporates paper targets and steel, and it's supposed to be a practical setting. Back when it started, it was more of like it's a home invasion situation, and this is what you're going to do. We'll have a stage layout, and we have to figure out the most efficient way to navigate through this stage while shooting paper targets, engaging steel. Some of the targets might move on a swinger base, so they're kind of bobbing in and out. And this one is going to be, you're going to take into consideration your points on paper, and your points are based on your accuracy. You have scoring rings, and then your time that you completed the stage as well. So it comes down to some stages might be heavier on time. So you can say, okay, well, I don't have to be as accurate. It's not as important. I need to be faster. And some stages you might have to do the math and say, okay, well, this one's going to be more accuracy heavy. I need to aim a little bit harder and not just blaze through it and hope I get a hit on paper. But that one's the most physical of all of them. I just sum it up with it's running and gunning. It's like 3-gun, but with just a pistol.
Okay.
Since you've shot the zombie match. It's so fun. It's really fun.
Yeah, of all of those, that particular one, USPSA, sounds like something I could be interested in. That's the dynamics of it.
Seth shoots rifles. He doesn't shoot much for handguns.
Well, you can shoot PCC.
Yeah.
They have a PCC division now.
Got nothing against it. It's just not something that I've been involved in. But like you said, where the difference between Bianca versus USPSA, where you're more active, it's more physical, and that helps separate the pool of people that are participating. When that level of fitness and just being able to move comes into play, it's a mental game too. USPSA, you got to run through, you got to have a plan for how you're going to gauge your targets, when you're going to reload. All that stuff takes place, and the people that are good at it
that's a big part of it is the mental planning and preparation,
Yeah.
how to effectively move through here and do it in the shortest period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's problem solving 101.
And bullets, which bullets are you using the most of these days?
So mostly it's the 9mm 125 grain HAP. So when I started, I shot all XTPs and I love that bullet. And then I think, which I don't know the reason behind XTP and then having the HAP, but it's essentially the same bullet, isn't it?
Yeah,
HAP and
they're
XTP,
very
yeah.
similar. They just don't have the
Yeah.
skives in the nose. The HAPs are not a personal protection, personal defense bullet.
Yeah. So I shoot all HAPs and everything, but I'll go back and forth between a 115 grain for Steel Challenge, 125 grain if I'm shooting open and it's loaded to Super Comp, or 147 for. I just started shooting a 9mm in single stack as opposed to a Super Comp minor. So I've got the 147 grain now. So
yeah, and that's something that people probably don't understand is the minor and major stuff.
Yeah, so that's another aspect to USPSA. It doesn't come into play in Steel Challenge or a Bianca Cup. Major and minor is determined on your power factor. And if you're shooting major, since you're shooting a hotter round and you have more recoil, you get more points per hit. So it's kind of like a bonus for shooting a heavier round. So with that, like single stack, you can shoot major or minor, but since you're limited to round capacity, I choose to shoot minor so that I have 2 extra rounds in a 10-round magazine as opposed to 8 rounds if I was to shoot 45. So with that, I immediately know I have to be more accurate in this match because my hits are going to be less points compared to someone who might be shooting major. And that's just before I even fire a shot. So that's one thing to take into consideration. When I shoot open, it's always major. So I have a little more leniency if I drop one shot out of the A zone. So the A zone is 5 points. The Charlie is 4 for major, 3 for minor. And then the delta, which is the remaining edges of the target, is 2 points in major and 1 in minor.
So you get penalized if you're minor versus major is kind of how it works for if you're not accurate. Okay.
Yep. So it's a lot to take in. There's so much just to the shooting sports to understand, but once you get the hang of it, it's.
And how about 3-gun? You shoot a little 3-gun from time to time? Not much?
So I started in 3-gun when I made that transition from cowboy. It was very easy. And a friend of mine, Taryn Butler, he loaned me all the gear to kind of help me get started. And I shot multi-gun for about 2 years. I won 2 multi-gun national championships then. And as I got heavier into the...
I just dabbled in it.
Yeah. Let's see if I'm any good at this. Yep, I am. Moving on.
That's funny.
But it just got to where as more sponsors came on board and more matches started to build to shoot, I quickly learned that if I spread myself too thin, then I'm just going to be mediocre in all of them. And I'm not okay with that. So I kind of just went down the pistol path, and that's just kind of been where I've resided. And I've shot other disciplines, like I was shooting Bianca Cup, Steel Challenge, USPSA. And like I mentioned earlier, Bianca Cup is just such a specific match. And a lot of the people that shoot that don't shoot any other discipline. So they're spending every year just focused on shooting X's, and it's all trigger control. Whereas when I go to these speed shooting events, I still have to have trigger control, but it's not as precise as in Bianca Cup. And I didn't have a mover set up, here at home. So, and that's probably the whole match comes down to the mover. So I just started to feel as like I'm again spread too thin, and me personally, I can't show up just to participate. I have to show up to compete and try to win. So it got to where I was showing up to participate, and I don't like that.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I've been around her enough. She's super competitive. I think racing to a parking spot, racing. Yeah,
it's a good trait to have. When you have that hyper competitiveness and you can learn how to channel it, that can be a really good driver and help guide you into some really high level accomplishments.
So, and then what about some hunting stuff? I know you like to do that.
Love to hunt. That's kind of what I do once the shooting season is over. So thankfully the shooting season runs February to March, October to November. And then once that ends, then Casey and I usually hit the woods and go find things to hunt. So I did. Had a wonderful hunt with the Hornady ladies.
And, maybe there's some folks out there that don't know, but you're engaged to Casey Eusebio, right? So
Yes,
another
I
great
am.
shooter. He's okay.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah, he's super fast. No, he's a good guy, too. He's a lot of fun.
That probably only helps the training.
Yeah.
Honestly, it does. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, he's a character. I don't know if you've met him or not yet, Seth, but he's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing hyper competitive as well.
Oh yeah, very. He's one of the top ranked men in the world as well. And a lot of people are like, oh, how are y'all super competitive? Can you even go to the range together? And I think because most partners can't really go and do the same sport or activity together, but I think we were friends for so long before we ever started dating, and we shot together for 17 years as friends in the same group here in Georgia. So we were used to being around each other on the range and training together. So that gave us that smoothed the path for once we were emotionally invested in each other to realize, okay, this will work.
Yeah. Probably have to temper that competitiveness when you're training with each other. Not only do I have to beat you at the range, but then I also have to go home with you. So we got to make sure that I don't beat you up too bad.
We're pretty good about it. I mean, we'll have challenges with each other every time we're on the range. We call it the world's greatest shooter shoot off. And it's honestly just for fun. It's honestly for fun. We make up some off the wall random challenge with whatever guns we have. If we have carry guns, we'll pull those out. If someone has a rifle, shotgun, whatever it is, and we'll make up these challenges. But we are pretty competitive with each other.
Yeah, and that's fun because you got to keep it fun. I mean, once you start doing something for a job or a career, it's kind of like we're here all day. We were talking about ammo, bullets, shooting, hunting, and this and that, and then you're going to go home and reload. But that's just how it goes. So you got to try to find some way to make it all fun.
Yeah, it has
to.
Yeah. And if it wasn't fun, you wouldn't probably be as good for as long as you've been. You know what I mean? You can.
I agree. It's so easy to get burnout.
Sure.
Because a lot of people don't realize, or maybe they do. I don't know. But this is our job. So to go and shoot, that's my job. I have other obligations to companies and specifically to tourists that I have to do for work, but my number one job is to go shoot. So Monday through Friday, when it's training season, we're up and we're out on the range, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that sounds amazing. It is amazing. But like you said, when you take your hobby and turn it into a job, it very quickly could become the last thing you want to go do. And so and that's why shooting different disciplines throughout the year also, that kind of helps break up the monotony of training. But, we have to get up and go shoot and train, and, we have to find ways to keep it entertaining and keep our interests peaked and, be able to look at it and say, okay, well, this year I need to work on X, Y, and Z, and those are my goals. And that way, you don't get stagnant in your performance, and, you've got to stay on top of it.
Yeah. Now, in that same vein where you're got to find ways to stay engaged, do you find yourself trying other shooting sports like precision rifle, long range stuff, for example?
I did, yeah. So, and honestly, this was Casey's idea to begin with. He was like, I wanted to try PRS. I was like, oh no, it's so boring. Why would we go do that? We're pistol shooters. I had no idea. No, it's not. But that was just my outside, looking in opinion. I had done no research. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And I'm a creature of habit. So when you tell me, hey, we're going to change all of our gear and go do something completely different, I'm like, no thanks.
Yeah.
So,
and you want to win.
Yeah.
Yes,
and you're hyper competitive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm like, we have a learning curve. We've got to figure this out. But my teammate on Bushnell, Missy, she shoots PRS. She's a female champion in the circuit, and they were doing the Bushnell Brawl, the Pro-Am.
Yeah. Missy Gilliland.
Yep.
Yeah, Missy Gillen.
Yeah,
so,
the gap grind.
Yep.
Gap grind.
Tennessee.
Sorry. Yeah, that's it. The gap grind. And she came to me, she goes, because she knew we were kind of wanting to maybe dabble in it a little bit. And she goes, this would be the perfect opportunity for you, to be introduced to the sport and figure it out. I can be your pro. You'll be the AM. I can coach you through everything. So I was like, oh, awesome. So I got to use all of her gear. I went and trained with her a couple of times because she lives in Georgia as well. And so I got to stick my toe into the PRS swimming pool. And I quickly learned it is not boring by any means. It is just as action-packed as I would need it to hold my attention. And I found that it's not so much the shooting that I felt handicapped at. Because for me, like to shoot a pistol, that's the hardest firearm to master. So to go to a rifle, for me, it's trigger press. I didn't know how to call any wind, and we're shooting, 500 out to 1,000, I think.
Oh, and you had to be a pro, right?
Yes, at the last minute, I was thrown into the pro because I have a shooting jersey.
Yeah, because so that's the way the gap grind works, So if you're a pro or a world champion or something in another shooting sport, you're automatically a pro at the gap grind. Yeah.
Which that wasn't necessarily how the rules were written. So Missy and I thought she could be the pro, I'll be there, because I've never shot a rifle match. I've shot multi-gun, but it's not the same. Anyone who shoots Paris knows multi-gun is not the same. So I find out at registration that we've now been put into a pro category. And so I'm immediately just like thrown off my game. And when you shoot pro, you were. Yeah. I had a few moments where I didn't say a lot of nice things, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, man, these targets
but when
are
you
small.
go, because in amateur you shot bigger targets, and in pro you had smaller targets. So I struggled because I had never done that before. But me being so competitive, it kind of lit the fire to once I get to a point to where I can feel like I don't have to focus so much on handgun and can dive into another sport. I 100% want to invest in that sport and make a comeback. Like I have to go better what I left as. Like I'm not okay with
redemption.
That. Yes, I need redemption.
I think everybody who's ever shot a precision rifle match or a PRS style match, I always ask this question when it's their first match, because I remember shooting some long range competition stuff in 2013 and 2014 timeframe, and then in 2014 ran my first precision rifle style match, and I had no idea that's what it was going into it, because of the previous matches had been like hike and shoot type matches. So on the way home, it was like, man, that was stupid. This is a bunch of circus stuff. This is no fun. And then it was like a 3-hour drive home. So the first hour was that, and then the last little bit of the drive was like, okay, well, you know what? I think if I do this, and instead of shooting suppressed, I'll run with the muzzle brake.
Well, there's still one of the funniest videos. Well, Tom Fuller, right? Tom at Armageddon Gear, and Missy Gilliland. So they film a bunch of videos for Armageddon Gear, and there's some comedic gems in there. But there's one when those two are driving to the match, and Tom's like, "Oh, I'm shooting really well. Ammo's all dialed. I'm all set. I can't wait to shoot this." And Missy's kind of saying the same thing. And then they fast forward like 8 hours later. Tom gets in the truck, throws his hat on the dash. Yeah. And Missy starts chiming in. He's like, the wind, just start going off on all the things that went wrong. Yeah. It's classic. Yeah.
It really is an equalizer.
Love it. Yeah.
And the elite level guys, they're hitting 90+% on a lot of the matches, but the middle of the pack type of shooters that like the most of us are, you get so much time and money and effort invested. You get all excited and you go to the match, and then you come home and you're like, "Oh, that was stupid. I can't believe I held the wrong wind. I can't believe this, that, and the other thing."
But that is something I wanted to bring up too, though. We at Hornady, we work with a lot of different shooting genres. There's rifle shooters, handgun shooters, you name it, right? We got everybody, every kind of sport, NRA high power, IPSC, USPSA, you name it. But I think the one thing that I've kind of come across by going to a lot of matches, either as a marketing function or shooting them myself, there are people that are just naturally better at this stuff. I mean, they are just going to be good at it. Once they learn how to play the game, learn how to navigate some of the nuances of XYZ sport, they are just genetically better at it. I mean, it's like, Usain Bolt, that guy can run really fast. Yep. You take another person and they could run every day and just train their brains out, but they're not going to beat Usain Bolt. And I speculate, and Jesse, you must be one of these people, that there's some little genetic thing, hand-eye coordination, whatever it is, that helps them to win. I mean, I could shoot a lot, and I'm probably not going to break the top 5 ever in my life, But there's some people that just can. Yep.
You're right, and I think some of it has to do with, like you said, the nut behind the bolt, as I like to say. The person driving the car, so to speak, is between their ears. They have what it takes, and I think the application of the fundamentals of marksmanship really bridge almost any shooting sport. When you're good at applying the fundamentals, and a lot of that is sight alignment, sight picture, and trigger control. When you can apply those consistently every single time you pull the trigger, it doesn't matter what sports you're playing, you're going to be at least pretty good at it. I think that's one of those things.
But you will see a difference between like shotgun shooters and center fire, something or another, rim fire shooters. There's a little bit there. One might be good at one and not the other, but not always. Sometimes they're good at both. We've got a slew of people on the team, and Jessie, you know them all, and they we got people that can pick up a slingshot probably and win a competition.
Well, and something that goes into that, I was talking about the nut behind the bolt, where once they figure out the fundamentals of marksmanship and they can apply those to any sport, and then you fuel that with being hyper competitive, and then you supplement that with that competitive nature that's been focused, and now you have the ability to train, and the reps that you do in training. You might not train as much as somebody else, but you're getting more out of those reps because you're so mentally focused.
I mean, I don't care how good you are, you're going to have to train.
Yep.
I mean, again, Usain Bolt, I'm pretty sure he does some running. Well, maybe he doesn't now. I think he's retired. So then when you test ammo, how is it? What's the process you use once you get your bullets and you get your ammo loaded? How do you test to determine what's working for you? Do you have a
So I have Atlanta Arms that's local here to Georgia. Y'all send all of my components, my bullets and brass, to Atlanta Arms, and they load it specifically to what I've worked out with them and my guns specifically over all these years. So the loaders there, they know if I call and say, hey, I have all, XYZ rounds coming in from Hornady, load this amount for my 38 Super Comp major load. They know exactly what that needs to be.
So that doesn't change, and it always works.
It does not change.
Okay. Cool.
Unless I have a gun change, and then I go to them and they load and we test until I get the velocity that I want and see how it cycles and performs in the gun. Or if I call and say, hey, I need so many rounds of my Steel Challenge load. They know exactly what that is. So it doesn't change. And they do such a good job. It's so consistent that I'll get it home and I'll run it through a chrono just to verify. But it stays, the same across the board. But, always check everything, prior to going to a major match. But it's easy for me. I've been very fortunate to not have to actually hand load ammo. If I did, I probably wouldn't. I know I would not shoot as much as I do.
Do you have any idea of how many thousands of rounds you pull the trigger on every year?
Each year is probably around... depending on what match. So if it's a world shoot year, which this year is supposed to be, it's been postponed since 2020. A world shoot year, it's probably going to be close to 40 to 50,000 rounds a year.
Yeah.
Other than that, just a regular competition year, maybe 25 to 30,000 rounds a year.
That's a few.
That's a few.
It's a couple.
That's a few.
Yeah.
That's burning it down.
Yeah. I know some people will tell me, I shoot a couple hundred rounds a week. I'm like, that is a warm up. Like,
yeah. Well, and in the precision rifle world that I'm most experienced with, I mean, if you're running a hot rod 6mm, you're twisting off a barrel every 1,000 to 1,200 rounds. Yeah. So 30,000 rounds would be a little bit.
Funny story. When I was getting ready for the PRS, I was getting all my gear together. I called me. I was like, hey, I need this ammo. Can I get, like 10,000 rounds? And he was like, do you need that much? I was like, well, I mean, I'm going to be training. I got a couple months to get ready.
Yeah, she's thinking all handgun numbers. Pop, pop, pop. Yeah. And I was like, no.
Yeah. And then
knock a zero off there, maybe.
Yeah, are you retiring somewhere that I don't know about? Yeah.
And then Missy tells me that she, will shoot a barrel out at 2,500 rounds. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no way I could keep up with that. Yeah. Very different worlds.
Yeah, it is a different world.
Yep.
But, I mean, so what do you do to prepare? So, I mean, you're an athlete, you shoot. Do you guys have workout stuff that you do? How do you prepare for matches and all that stuff?
So like right now, we're really just diving into the beginning of our season. We had our first match last weekend at Area 6. And prior to that, honestly, I'm in the gym year round. That's one of the things I just love to do. I love to work out. But I also have a trainer that I work with. His name's Ben with BLS Nutrition. And he has my whole year scoped out for what matches I have and when I need to be at peak performance level. So he puts me through this program throughout the entire year so that I'm nutritionally ready to go. I know what I need to fuel my body on match day or like leading up to a big championship, that I'm physically ready to go, so that I'm not burnt out by the time I get to it physically. So we do that. We have, workout programs that we do. And then as far as training on the range, once the season starts, and usually about a month or two before our first major match, we say, okay, it's time to start hitting the range. And the first week or two, we're not really going heavy with the round count or like super intense training. It's really just to get back behind the gun, refamiliarize yourself with everything, knock the rust off. Because at the end of the season, I don't pick up my handguns until it's time to start training again. So I have that downtime so that I don't get burnt out for the next year. A lot of people will shoot year round or keep training, even though there's no matches on the major circuit. I walk away from them completely so that I have time for a mental break, a physical break. So when we start back up, it's kind of like just reintroducing ourselves to, what we have to,
That's cool. That's pretty interesting.
Get back in the mode for. So
it's something that you do so often and you do so well. It's I'm guessing super helpful, but to me, it would be odd to hang it up for a certain amount of time. But again, probably super necessary, like you mentioned, to give yourself that break.
Yeah,
but
it's more of a mental break than anything physically related. The training sessions are intense, the match pressure, staying focused like that. It's mentally exhausting. And a lot of people don't realize that at that level, it'll drain you. And to hold that hyper focus for a stage, for a day, for a match, and a match could be 3 days long, 3 to 7 days long, depending on the level. So to maintain that throughout the year, so that I don't like first match, I'm woohoo, I won. And then it just, falls off after that. Like I have to keep that up and keep going throughout the year. So when it comes to the end of the season, it's more of a mental break for me than anything, is just so that I can just relax, regroup, have some fun times, have family time, because so much is sacrificed during the shooting season that, because it is my job. Even though it's not a professional sport, I treat it as, say, like an Olympian would be training to go to the Olympics. Like everything is second place when it comes to shooting and training during the season.
That's cool. Remember when we worked with Matt Hughes from the USC for a while, sponsors TV show, did some stuff with Matt, and obviously a high-performing athlete, and his statement, when looking at the shooting sports or any kind of sport, golf, whatever you name it, right, was, if you want to be an athlete, you should train and look like an athlete. So he was big on, no matter what sports you're doing, you should train yourself to maintain your peak physical capability.
Yeah. Being a female in a male-dominated sport, having the physical fitness to not only try and be at the top level in the ladies categories, but I'm looking at overall performances as well. So that's another thing that I have to stay on top of, because these shooting sports that are so physical, I'm immediately, at somewhat of a disadvantage on the physical aspect, because I don't have the power that, men have. It's just, the difference of men and women. And so I have to train to have the muscles and the power to, overcome that, so that I don't feel like I'm at a disadvantage. So it's just falls into the category of train like an athlete.
And you want to win. I'm sure you raise people for parking spots and everything.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do.
It's very competitive.
It's funny because when we have like friends nights or game nights, everyone wants to play catchphrase, and I love catchphrase. Do y'all know what this game is?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, so you have this little handheld controller, and it'll bring up category. You pick your category, and it'll pop up a word, and you have to describe this word to your teammates without saying the actual words.
Okay, yeah.
So, and I'm so competitive that it ends up everyone's in a fight. Like,
great. It's great. Invite Jessie to your dinner party. Yeah.
I can't even do game night with friends and family without getting competitive.
Oh my God! Oh, hey, how'd you get that black eye? Oh, Jessie punched me.
Because I beat her.
Family game night.
Well,
super competitive.
That's probably super necessary, though. Although being competitive is to have time like that where you're just laughing and goofing around. And you talked earlier about you hang it up for a little bit after the competitive season, and does that line up well with allowing you to do more hunting? Because hunting is or at least for me, super cathartic, and you can erase a lot of things and a lot of stress
It does.
just by getting out in the woods.
It does. I love being outdoors for anything. I just love to be outside. But to me, there's nothing, it's almost spiritual to me to be in the woods when you're sitting there and you see everything come to life and the woods wake up, outdoors wakes up, the sun rises. You see all these animals scurrying around, or you have a specific animal you're trying to outsmart. Like it's just a great thing for me to kind of decompress and just have something calm in my life, because when it's shooting time, everything, not that it's chaotic, but it's just high speed. So it's very nice to have something that I don't feel like I have to be competitive in hunting. For me, it's just to get outdoors, to have some calm, reflective time. If I, harvest something, great. If I don't, I'm not upset. It's okay. It wasn't like a competition. And then I just love the process of, finding the animal that I want to hunt, making the shot, making a good shot. And then the process that starts after that of, cleaning and processing all the meat and bringing that home, cooking it. It's the whole thing I just absolutely love. So it's something that's very relaxing to me. I know a lot of people, might say, oh, hunting, how is that relaxing? You're killing something. No, I'm out in Mother Nature and, that's my grocery store. And it's just very calming and relaxing. So it definitely aligns with, that's my downtime activity.
Yeah. Well, cool. and killing something while hunting is about 5% of the hunt.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot more that goes into it.
Yeah. I just
call
had
it killing.
Yeah.
I just did a trip and we had, was overseas and hunting. And there was a day that was extremely intense. And I remember thinking to myself, if I get an animal, if I don't get an animal, this is hands down one of the best days of hunting I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
It was a big deal. But so I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And it's peaceful.
Yeah.
And no, you don't get something every time you go out. That doesn't happen.
That's what keeps driving us. But of the animals that you've hunted, what do you like to pursue the most, and what areas of the country or world do you like to hunt the most?
So I love Africa. I've hunted Africa twice, and Casey and I actually have about 3 trips lined up for next year that we're just going to spend a couple of weeks over there and just do it all at once. That's probably one of my favorite places to go. Here in the U.S., I prefer to hunt in the Midwest as opposed to here on the East Coast where I grew up hunting. Before I ever did any type of spot and stalk hunt out west, all I knew of hunting was you go sit in a tree stand or a blind and you just sit and wait.
Yeah. Doesn't strike me as your personality.
Seth loves tree stand hunting. He's a big fan of it.
No. It just doesn't.
All I knew. Yeah.
That's kind of how I grew up, and it doesn't really align with what I do and what I am good at now. And I can't sit in a box or a tree stand and hang out and feel good about it.
And that's all I knew or had access to. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
But I went, I did a whitetail hunt out in Wyoming, and it was a spot and stalk because, you can't hunt Wyoming sitting in a blind or a tree stand. Everything out there is so vast and you don't have the coverage like you have here. So that was probably one of my first exposures to spot and stalk hunting. And from then I fell in love with that form of hunting. Yeah. I've done elk hunts and whitetail, muleys, pronghorns, bear, and majority of those have been spot and stalk. So that's probably my favorite form of hunting.
And Jessie she's just not there to kind of go along. She's participating. So gutting elk, I think you did that.
Yes.
What else? Yeah.
Yeah.
Packing them out.
She's part of the whole process.
Yeah. So, cause we were in camp at Eichler's and I was doing an elk hunt, and, I told Fred, because, he's the guy, then he's used to doing this whole process for the hunter. I said, look, I really want to be a part of this, if not do this. And he's like, okay, yeah, jump in. So, I gutted my elk in the field and we took it to a local processor just, for time's sake. Because so much to do when we were flying out. But I just love to be a part of the process. I feel it's my way of showing respect to the animal, and what it has given for me is to be hands-on and take care of it properly myself. So I try and do that with anything I go and hunt. And I'm of the type, not that I won't go hunt something if I'm not going to eat it, but I try to pick my hunts based on things that I will eat. And if it is something that I won't eat, then I find somewhere to donate it to. That way nothing goes to waste. But yeah, definitely
Awesome.
like to be involved.
What's so coming from this huge pistol background, what's a hunting rifle setup look like for you? What kind of cartridge,
Probably
what gun?
very basic, just because I'm not as familiar with the rifle world. I was with Weatherby for a while and worked with them and helped them design the Weatherby Camilla women's rifle.
Yeah.
that's right.
So that's mostly what I hunt with. I have
Okay.
a 308 that I like to go and use. It's lightweight, has a shorter stock. It's easy to carry for these, spot and stalk hunts. And then I've just got a Bushnell scope set on it. It's very basic, no bells and whistles like I have on my race guns. But I like the 308 cartridge. I've probably shot majority of my animals with 308.
Yeah, incredibly versatile from elk.
Yes.
Yeah, and everything you just mentioned
Yeah.
that you would hunt. The 308 has obviously
Yeah.
been around for many decades and is
Yeah.
plenty capable of taking all of those animals.
Yeah. I did a axis deer hunt last January, and I took 308 and some Casey went with us, and then our best friends went. And this was one of Justin's first hunts. And he bought a rifle, got it set up. I want to say it was maybe like 300 Weatherby mag, possibly. It was a big round.
Yeah.
And so I was the first to get an axis. One shot, dropped him.
What ammo?
It was the Hornady 308. The
Precision Hunter?
Precision
Probably.
Hunter. Yep.
178 ELDX.
Yeah, it's the best. It drops them. It's such a heavy hitter. And so Justin was next. We were actually on the way back into camp, and we spotted a herd of axis deer. So we got out, kind of put a stalk on him. And I took my rifle just, for backup. And for some reason, he had taken the magazine out of his rifle, so it wasn't loaded. I was like, here, just use mine. It was like a scurry of what was happening. I was like, here, just take mine. And so he shot his with my 308 as well. One shot, dropped him. So I love it. It's a very versatile round. I've shot bear, mule deer, axis deer with it. I'm kind of just putting notches on the stock with it now. So.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Well, what's the future look like for Jessie? What's coming up in the near future and some of your long-term goals, both competitively and otherwise?
So near future this year, we have our normal shooting schedule. We're shooting all the area championships. They're saying that our world championships is going to happen this year. And our world championship, this would be the IPSC organization. It's basically our Olympics. We spend 2 years qualifying for it by shooting national championships here in the U.S. And we have to qualify to make a team and then represent the U.S. at this championship. You can't go unless you're representing, your country. And it changes countries every 3 years. They have this huge opening ceremony. It's a 7-day match. It's a big thing, and it's been postponed since 2020, but they're saying this year it's going to happen. It's over in Thailand, and it'll be the end of November, 1st of December. So Casey and I'll get married and ship out to Thailand to go shoot.
What a honeymoon.
There's your honeymoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably the biggest thing for the year right now. That's where our focus is going to. I would say, after that, so that's the one match I have yet to win in my career is the World Championships. So that's going to be my main focus.
Yep, put that on the to-do list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that's going to take all of the energy this year. I would say in the future, realistically speaking, I probably have another 5 to 10 years to where I feel like I can physically and mentally continue at the pace I'm going on the shooting circuit. I could continue to shoot for however long I want to shoot, but knowing myself and I don't like to participate, I probably have another 5, maybe 10 years. So I'm really just trying to find ways to ingrain myself with Taurus and other companies in the industry to continue to be a part of it once I decide, I don't want to chase after all of these matches and titles. And so I've just been kind of figuring that out. We just started a podcast at Taurus, so that takes up a good amount of time, and that's somewhere, a little place I could live. We also have the shooting team. We expanded it a couple of years ago to add Casey and then also Trent Eichler. He's our junior shooter. So I would think probably, managing the shooting team and, podcasts and other things within Taurus and, hopefully still be able to represent, companies like Hornady and some of the other people that have been on board with me for so long. Just finding a way to still be relevant within the industry and not feel like I have to go and win a match to do that.
Yeah.
So,
well, you've certainly proved yourself up until this point by winning enough matches to go around. Yeah.
And then training, right? You guys do some training as well?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So Casey and I started a firearms training company. It's called Meta Group International. And it started as we were doing military training because of Casey's military background. And then also, personal training for the shooting sports or someone who just wanted to learn. And that transitioned to kind of a more high-end clientele. We weren't looking to go do these mass classes all over the country, just because shooting and competing for ourselves still is our main focus. And then it's just organically turned into it's military training only. We're fortunate to be able to go and train the highest level of special forces for our country. And that is probably some of the most rewarding work that we feel like we're able to do. We go in and spend, it's incredible. And these guys, they're the elite of the elite. So it's not like showing up and saying, okay, well, this is how you hold your pistol. These guys are good at everything they go do. They're looking for that one little thing that'll give them an edge. But instead of that edge being a championship win, it's their life. So it's, they take in everything that we show them, and they're, constantly asking questions, and they're very inquisitive, very smart. So, we get to go up and train and work with them, and they're all very, very good natural shooters. Like you were talking about earlier, Neil, like these are some of the most natural shooters you've ever seen. But it's really cool just to kind of have a peek into that world, because prior to Casey, I didn't really have any military exposure like that. But to be able to go and work with these guys, it's an absolute honor. It's the least I could do, I feel like.
Man, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's incredible. And like you said, when they're, they're not fighting for championships. They're fighting for
the ultimate championship.
Yeah, I guess you could
absolutely
call it the ultimate championship. So to being able to impart some knowledge, and if something that you train them in can save a life, save their life, bring them home, give them that much level, just that much more confidence in their craft. That's an incredible service and an incredible opportunity for you guys to do that. Because they as a warfighter goes, they're training a bunch of things, and you get to really focus on how can I shoot the pistol or whatever firearm the best, and then so you get to focus your training on that and impart your knowledge on them, and that's awesome.
Yeah. So
anything else, Neil, before we start to wrap this up that we didn't touch on? Jesse, anything that we didn't touch on that you want to get out there?
I don't think so. This was a good talk. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I really do appreciate you coming on. I know I learned a lot. I'm excited to have you back on, hopefully in the studio one of these days, next time you're in Nebraska.
I'd love to.
3.
Area 3. Yeah. It's in August this year, which we will now make that my birthday.
Yeah, Jessie. So for those watching, you may not know this, but so Jessie comes out, shoots Area 3 match, and it's usually around her birthday. So we go to a local Mexican restaurant, and she gets sung to in Spanish with a big sombrero on her head.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good time. Well, again, I thank you very much for taking time out of your day and your training, especially now as we're getting into your shooting season. Appreciate that. Neil, thanks for
thanks
jumping on this one. Guys, thanks for listening on this podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one.